New Galaxy Broadcasting proudly presents Integrative Hermetic Health with Hugo Rodier, MD. In this program, we explore a powerful new paradigm for health from the standpoint of integrative medicine. In his practice, Dr. Rodier integrates the ancient Hermetic art and the enduring role of food as medicine with modern nutrition, but also allowing for the wide range of important health practices, including truly valuable medical discoveries, chiropractic, acupuncture, homeopathic, and herbal medicine. In this program, Hugo Rodier, an expert in intestinal health and nutrition, will help the audience discover an approach that focuses on actual cures, not the masking of the elegant simplicity of many health solutions for the sake of profit. Profit too long has been an overriding motive of the pharmaceutical companies, and sometimes, sadly, by many in the medical establishment today. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning, Johnny.
How was your week this time?
Great Thanksgiving. Such a nice holiday. My favorite.
Yeah, I went to Denver to see my daughter, and she made a really scrumptious meal. And I have to say, stuffing and cranberry sauce. Oh my gosh, I love it. But
well, that's what it's for. You get a pass on Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Doctor. I was feeling guilty, but now I feel much better.
Nah, you just enjoy it, you know. We talked about Roseto, Pennsylvania. Remember that discussion?
Yeah, where the people who are eating maybe not so good foods, they're Italian foods, but they were doing better than some of their neighbors who were eating more legitimate type of foods according to our ideas.
Right, because these Roseto people, Italians that immigrated en masse, were so cohesive and you know, they knew each other. They had a sense of community. And so, yeah, that trumps a lot of issues. Of course, it's not an excuse, but you get the point.
I think I'll always have some kind of, digression, but I want the digression to be under my control.
Well said.
Anyway, well, I think the first thing on our list might be to discuss the importance of vitamin Bs in relationship to cancer.
Yes, it's a great article came out saying that B vitamins decrease your risk of breast cancer, and for a very good reason. Remember, we talked about methylation a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we need to review that so our listeners get it. But methylation is a very, very important pathway of detoxification in the liver. Methylation is also critical for blood vessels to be healthy and for our brain to make good neurotransmitters. By methylation, we mean attaching B vitamins to proteins. Proteins are always dressed up like Christmas trees. You know the analogy this time of the year.
Okay.
So proteins get attachments like arginine, like minerals, like vitamins. So to be complete, to function properly, to be structured properly. So a big ornament on the tree of proteins, if you will, is B vitamins. And then you can methylate real well. And so let's focus on methylation in the liver. And again, you get it that this process of detoxification in the liver is fueled by B vitamins, which are mostly found in whole grains and veggies, the diet that we emphasize to people. And so when we have good B vitamins, we methylate better, so we detoxify better. And so follow the thread. Cancer, breast cancer as well, is an environmental problem caused by xenoestrogens, Xeno, xenoestrogens.
That is also true of prostate cancer, correct?
Exactly. They're pretty much the same. Prostate, breast cancer, it's the same thing. Is driven by xenoestrogens in the environment. We have over 800 chemicals that are dubbed xenoestrogens. Some people call them endocrine disruptors, but these chemicals such as pesticides, dioxins, heavy metals, fluoride, chloride, rocket fuel, hair permanents, a whole lot of these chemicals have an estrogen effect on our bodies. So if we don't detoxify them very well, our breast tissues and prostate tissues are more susceptible to mutations, to overstimulation, if you will, from these environmental chemicals. Cancer is 85% environmental. and we can cope rather well. In fact, decrease our risk of cancer by 2/3 by eating the diet that we keep pounding on people, a plant-based diet. And so if we have adequate amounts of B vitamins in our body, we methylate better. We can get rid of these toxins, these xenoestrogens better. Of course, it makes more sense to avoid being exposed, but that can be hard in polluted environments. As I look out the window at our famous inversion here in Salt Lake City,
yeah,
you can't even see the mountains, for heaven's sakes.
I mean, we get that inversion effect, even though it's not here, in American Fork, which is about 45 minutes away. We have weeks of pollution here.
Right, trapped dirty air because of the mountains. And anyway, and so another angle to this whole methylation thing is our gut, for many reasons. The main one is a disruption of our microbiome, dysbiosis, or an imbalance of our microbiome, which leads to poor detoxification as well, because our gut bacteria, when not healthy, because you're eating too many sugars and pesticides and all that, will send the wrong signals to the liver to detoxify. But further, when our gut bacteria is not so good, we're eating poorly, we diminish absorption of key nutrients. And guess which one is the most affected?
B vitamins?
B vitamins. Especially as we age, we don't absorb B vitamins as well. And so you can see how the stage is set. Poor diets, polluted environments, aging. We start to get more cancers, you know.
Well, let me ask you something. If this is an informal question. If you were to, what do you think? If you were to take a survey of people about the causes of cancer and give them some percentages, what would be the top percentage that the normal person would say?
Great question, and I'm so sad, and our listeners will probably be on this camp, but most people will tell you cancer is a genetic problem. My mommy had breast cancer, my daddy had prostate cancer. I'm host. I'm going to get breast cancer if I'm a girl, prostate cancer if I'm a boy. And it's so sad because people, even doctors, have been brainwashed into blaming our genes.
I would say that at one point, if people were going to point to something that they thought would cause cancer, they would probably say nicotine.
Okay, well, that's specifically, you're getting specific now.
Yeah, I mean, that's not, yeah, I think what you're saying is correct. Most people, because not everybody obviously smokes anymore,
right.
But it just seems like they're probably not going to say environment.
No, they're not, even though the literature is pretty clear on this.
But they don't read the literature, right?
No, most people, not even doctors read the literature. They just get their marching orders from the pharmaceuticals in quick lunch visits or symposiums paid for by the pharmaceuticals, or even university professors, medical school professors doing research who get their palms greased by grants from the pharmaceuticals. So you can see why most people will blame genes. Now, specifically, you brought up nicotine. Well, yeah, that's for lung cancer. But I'm surely you know that a whole lot of lung cancer patients never smoked. And so what's going on? Poor detoxification from eating poorly. So the thing about genes began when I was in medical school, I remember, in the 80s. The promise of figuring out our DNA, which we have, and the DNA of the microbiome, was starting to fill our journals back then in the 80s. So there was this big promise, a stampede, if you will, to figure out the genome. Then we're going to solve all diseases. And then we're going to test you for your genes. And then we're going to try to modify your genes even before you're born. And now we still are telling people, let's just figure out your genes and then we can prevent disease. Because there's money in it. There's a lot of money in it. So we still are hypnotized by this promise of altering our genes in some way without looking at epigenetics.
Right. In other words, we can change our genetics by, for instance, by looking at our environmental situation and also by eating properly.
Exactly. In fact, this article that you may give us a reference here in a minute, this article saying that B vitamins help you prevent breast cancer is an epigenetic article. It's basically saying saying that if you are loaded up with B vitamins by eating a proper diet and supplementing and fixing your gut so you can absorb those nutrients better, you can dodge the genetic bullets that you might have in your family tree.
This brings up a sort of an integrative hermetic topic, which is the relationship between science and nature. In other words, it seems to me that there is a role for technology in this world, and I think it's very nice role. There is a stop put in by God or by the divine presence where you just have to respect nature. Technology has to cooperate with nature, and I think most of our technology is an adversary.
Yes, it's such a can of worms, and it's going to get worse and worse as we look at transhumanism, artificial intelligence, and we talked about that before, so thanks for linking that to that overarching topic that's sort of like the other shoe's about to drop, and we'll have to figure that one out for sure. Well, speaking of technology, go ahead, Johnny.
Wanted you to relate the reference, the reference that you were working with. You had mentioned that you would, to the article on methylation.
Oh, don't you have it with you?
Yeah, it's methylation-based biological aid in breast cancer risk. It's from the Journal of the National Cancer Institute, volume 111, issue 10, October 2019, pages 10,051. But this is, I think, a very interesting thing to know about, because B vitamins seem to be much more important than I was aware of, for sure. And I'm sure much of our listeners have not been aware of their special function in terms of methylation.
Yes, and we sure recommend people check their levels of B vitamins. Of course, most of them will end up at the good doctor's, neighborhood doctor's office, where the doctor will draw a B12 level. Stop that. That's not useful. You're looking at a B vitamin, one of the many B vitamins in the bloodstream. You could check B6, B2, whatever vitamin you like in the blood. That is not a good measurement, a good test to do.
Oh, really? What is the good test?
Well, think about it. You're looking for those tests, assess how much vitamin B you've got in the bloodstream. But that is not where the rubber meets the road. It's not where function truly happens. Okay. Function truly happens within the cell. Each cell needs B vitamins. So we need to come up with a test that checks for levels inside cells, which it's not going to be the same as blood levels, because you remember we talked about the cell membrane?
Yeah.
Made up of fats, proteins, and sugars. Well, if you don't have a good, well-constituted cell membrane because you're not eating so well, and you're eating the wrong sugars, which glycosylate the cell membranes, and you're not eating antioxidants, which oxidizes and inflames your cell membranes, and you're not fueling the mitochondria, then your cell membranes will not be spiffy enough to get those B vitamins going by in the bloodstream into the cell.
I see.
You see? Uh-huh. So the tests to look into if you want to assess your true cellular, intracellular B vitamin levels are two: homocysteine and methylmalonic acid. I always think of Karl Malone, from the Utah Jazz, to remember that one.
Yeah.
Methylmalonic acid. Homocysteine, that whole thing about homocysteine won the Nobel Prize in 1998. And the good doctors, three of them who figured out that homocysteine is a good thing to check, believe that you want to keep that number below 8 homocysteine levels. But the good laboratories around the country will tell you you're okay even up to 15. So it's wrong. So a doctor needs to know this. A patient needs to know that you need to aim for a homocysteine level below 8. Okay?
Yeah.
Then you know you got good B vitamin levels. The other one is methylmalonic acid. All right. But let's go back to homocysteine. It turns out to be a liver protein that the liver puts out as an alarm system saying, hey guys, I'm not seeing enough B vitamins, so I'm just going to send out a signal, homocysteine, and it goes up and up and up and up. It turns out that this molecule coming out of the liver, homocysteine, is inflammatory. So there's another little problem there, that homocysteine not only signals that you lack B vitamins, but it's an inflammatory molecule. So that is why it's good to check homocysteine levels, which you often see elevated in people with arterial disease. Why? Because number one, homocysteine is signaling that you don't have enough B vitamins, which are critical to activate arginine, that super amino acid we've talked about, essential for the integrity of the arterial walls. It's not going to do you any good unless you couple it with B vitamins, you see. Further, homocysteine, being an inflammatory molecule, begins to inflame the cells lining the arterial walls, the wallpaper of arteries. And so, yeah, I mean, these can be little things that you might have an issue with homocysteine B vitamin levels way before you start to get clotting or clogging up of the artery.
I'm still not clear, though. I'm sorry to say. I'm not clear on the test for this, for the cellular level. How do you do that test?
Oh, it's a blood test.
Oh, it is a blood test. Okay.
Yes, it's a blood test.
It's just one that's more comprehensive.
Right. I'm glad that you clarified that. So, to review, don't check B vitamin levels in the bloodstream. Check homocysteine and methylmalonic acid in the bloodstream, which are signals cells put out when they're not seeing enough B vitamin within the cells. So they're blood tests as well.
Oh, well, that clarifies that. Thank you so much. We're going to take a break now, and we'll be right back. This is Johnny Bluestar, CEO of New Galaxy Enterprises, a media content development company. Want to write a book but don't want the challenges of developing time-consuming social media platform, costly private book promotions, complex email campaigns, and advertising commitments? If you write a book about your business, you don't need a mass audience. Focus on prospective clients with the best business card there is, your own book. To learn more about New Galaxy, see samples of our work, or talk to us about your project, please go to www.newgalaxyenterprises.com and fill out the contact form.
It is the 15th century. El Tesoro de Cielo, a Spanish treasure ship, sends a scouting expedition to a strange island. Golden statues surrounding them prove the enormity of their find. Suddenly, hordes of ghoulish creatures with scaly green flesh and skeletal wings descend upon them from the sky.
What do you think of this, Rufio?
These creatures are fragile, Captain. We can take them with our swords.
They seem supernatural. Who knows what powers they possess?
Fallen angels, weakened by their treason.
By God, are you saying they're Nephilim, the devil's host?
I'm saying, whatever they are, we can take them. Do any of you cowards dare join me?
Up against sharp knife-like nails and hideous fangs, the men's swords rip into slimy green flesh. Though black blood pours copiously from their half-naked bodies, the creatures miraculously persist. Can the crew survive this bloody, cursed battle?
Find out more by Googling The Thrice Born, a new sci-fi supernatural novel by Carlos Lopez Avery and Johnny Bluestar. Google with the words Carlos Johnny Kindle, The Thrice Born. That's Carlos Johnny Kindle, The Thrice Born.
Here's a song by Lightstream focusing on the key to our spiritual health.
motion, picture show. The man rejects today. What can I say? Life is play. Awareness, conscious awareness, awareness, blissful awareness, awareness, conscious awareness, awareness, blissful awareness, awareness, conscious
We're back on the Integrative Hermetic Health Show with Dr. Hugo Rodier, and we've been discussing B vitamins and the blood test that will actually prove useful to understanding where you're at in terms of the proper amount of B vitamins. Did you want to add some things further to that?
Yes, I'd like to highlight a couple of supplements that are pretty sexy. Think of them as B vitamin derivatives. That's how I explain it to patients, both of which have become drugs. Folic acid, FTHFR. It stands for a folic acid that has already been metabolized within cells.
Okay.
Yeah. And so this molecule became a drug in the United States. They call it Deplin, DEPLLIN, for depression. And so it
Really?
goes to show you the power of B vitamins. And so this FTHFR folic acid, you can test it in the blood. Turns out that a third of women don't have problems with this folic acid, metabolized folic acid. And so you could get tested if you want. I say to my patients, look, just try this FTHFR folic acid supplement for a month, see how you feel. And if you feel an improvement, I don't know that you need to test. So it goes to show you another issue that we've talked about, how pharmaceuticals often get their drugs from Mother Nature, but they don't tell you about it. It's bad for business. And they have to, right, they have to tweak the molecule a little bit because you cannot patent natural products. Same thing happened in Europe with another metabolized derivative of B vitamins, SAMe, S-A-M-E. It too became a drug in Europe for depression, the liver, and pain. SAMe is a very good anti-inflammatory and at the same time a mood stabilizer. Why? Because B vitamins are critical to make neurotransmitters. You see, methylation also happens in the brain. It turns out that the proteins in the brain made up of GABA, the amino acid GABA, or tryptophan. See, these amino acids get dressed, decorated like a Christmas tree with B vitamins, and then they become neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine. And so you can see how vital B vitamins are for our moods, our neurotransmitters as well. And one final thing about methylation. Turns out that you cannot express your genes adequately without B vitamins because B vitamins are critical for the unfolding of DNA so it can be copied. In other words, epigenetics at its best. And we go back to how that article showed that good levels of B vitamins can help you with the expression of your genes and decrease also the chances of breast cancer and prostate cancer.
Wow, that's really interesting. It comes to, I don't want to give too much of a plug to this program, but if doctors aren't even listening, then a lot of times the lay people who are listening are actually ahead of the game in a big way, aren't they?
I'm glad you brought that up. I often see patients come in shaking their heads that they didn't get good advice with their doctors because they are learning more. Doctors are fixed in what they learn in medical school unless the pharmaceuticals update their education.
This is drone education.
Right. And before we continue that, I have to tell you that I feel bad for doctors. It's not that they're bad people or they don't like to learn. It's that they're getting their fingers worked to the bone by the corporations they work for. Now, Johnny, would you feel like going home to read journals when you have to show up at work at 6 in the morning and you don't get home till 6 in the evening, maybe 7 after doing all the paperwork? Then you got to work out maybe if you're lucky and spend time with your family, and then again the next day. I mean, really, are you going to pick up the New England Journal of Medicine under those conditions?
Well, I think if we could recommend some kind of ability to not sleep, it would be a very good idea. I mean,
Sure.
Why should they sleep? They're doctors.
Exactly.
They should automatically get well from anything.
Yeah, well, they don't sleep much through training. I didn't.
Yeah, I know medical school is arduous, mnemonically arduous.
You know, every time a topic comes up, I have a soft spot for my colleagues, especially when I only work 2-3 hours a day. I come home to read and write, take a nap, read some more, write some more, hang out with my family, chew the fat with you on the radio. Why? Because I never saw medicine as a way to make money. And so in a very toxic way, doctors have chosen to practice that way. They could easily say to the corporation, hey, I'm out of here. I'm going to do it my way. It's just that most doctors are not trained in the financial running of their office. They're locked in by having to take insurance, which pretty much dictates how you are going to work. And so it's a systematic failure. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, especially not doctors. I think it's systematic failure because as a society, we've chosen the mighty dollar over spiritual, humanistic values, period.
Yeah, in every field, really.
In every field, exactly.
It's, for those of us on the other side, not the doctor's side, but on the patient side, the discovery of what the reality is in relationship to sickness and nutrition and environment, it's a very big paradigm shift because it's not supported by our society.
Right, exactly. I got to tell you about this cute patient that came in yesterday. She walks in with a poinsettia.
Okay.
And gives me a big hug because 4 years ago I cured her ulcerative colitis.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, it's a fulminant disease of the gut. And of course, doctors will tell you there's no cure for it. And so she was stunned when I told her, yeah, come on in. I'll be happy to see you. I can cure ulcerative colitis. So she comes in totally mainstream, eating really poorly. But 4 years later, I hardly ever see her. She makes a point to come in before Christmas with a poinsettia.
Well, that's nice.
She has learned what it takes to be healthy. And so she hardly needs me anymore.
Yeah, and that's how it should be, right?
Exactly. She got it. So she's become a health nut, if you will. Isn't it interesting that we have that word for people that don't fit in the mainstream as if it were a derogatory term?
Yeah, especially since they should eat more nuts. Get those good fatty acids.
Exactly. Yeah. Hey.
And lose weight. That's what we proved in a recent program. Recent studies have shown that. So
and there's another article floating around. I think we might cover it today. I can't remember. You're in charge of that.
Oh, thanks.
Nuts help you lose weight.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I still see patients who tell me, Doc, I'm not going to eat nuts. Are you nuts? Nuts have a lot of fat. I don't want to put on weight. Really? No, you lose weight with nuts, with healthy fat. Why? Many reasons. A big one we already covered. Our cell membranes are made up of fats, 80% fat. If you got good fat, making up a good intake of fat to make up structure, your cell membranes that we talked about, you become less insulin resistant by decreasing oxidation, inflammation, and better constructing your cell membrane. So insulin can get into the cell to do its thing, improve your metabolism, and that's how it is that you lose weight and are healthier eating nuts.
Well, that is good to know. But I want to deviate for a second and ask another question.
Yep.
Okay, we've been discussing doctors and what they generally do with people. And what about the situation with yourself and your patients and the antibiotic prescriptions?
Well, most of my patients are well educated. So if they come in, looking for with some infection, bronchitis, sinusitis, sore throat, those are the most common presentations. They're relieved when I examine them and I say, you don't need an antibiotic. So, yeah, we're overprescribing antibiotics. Of course, you always see in the journals that that's going to speed up bug resistant. That's the least of your concerns. That's a long-term concern. The immediate concern is that you're messing up your gut bacteria and thereby further compromising your immune system. So you end up chasing your tail. You get more infections down the road. And so I have to say, though, that on occasion I'll give people a prescription if it's a big holiday coming up, a weekend, and the presentation is such that the patient might not be understanding. I do prescribe an antibiotic and I say, don't fill it, Just go cash it in, go fill it if you get worse in the next 2-3 days.
Yeah.
And most patients don't. And that's been documented in the medical literature. So a lot of doctors are beginning to do that for many reasons. It's a psychological thing, like the whiskey bottle in the home of an alcoholic. You get the analogy.
Yeah, sure.
And you buy, and you get patients' confidence. You meet them halfway, sort of. So on occasion, I'll do that. So, yeah, the antibiotic story is quite compelling.
Well, we know from our discussions that having so many antibiotics as a child has definitely affected the microbiome and really downsized the power of the immune system for so many people in so many different ways. It's almost staggering that the effect of these drugs.
Yeah, I call it the smoking gun, when people come in with all kinds of diseases like that lady I told you about with ulcerative colitis or any other disease. I start digging into their past history. So just about always I find a smoking gun. A lot of antibiotics as a child, sore throats, ear infections, acne. A whole lot of these patients, particularly with gut issues, were blasted with antibiotics and Accutane for acne. Accutane also has been shown to beat up on the microbiome. If they haven't taken an antibiotic and they have immune system issues, I often find that mommy, when she carried the patient inside, was blasted with antibiotics through the delivery or before the delivery. And so, you can figure that out.
Yeah.
So often I find antibiotics in the background, excessive antibiotics.
Well, we're going to take a break now, and when we get back, we're going to look at an entirely different problem, which has to do with screen time and young children's brains. We'll be right back. My company, New Galaxy Enterprises, is a California corporation specializing in the creation of media and promotional content. We are focused on original, innovative projects that are good for humanity. These projects could be nonfiction books or novels, fictional screenplays or documentary content, websites and website content, commercial advertising content for print, audio, or video products on the internet, television, or radio, musical scores for advertising, television, or film, video, audio editing, etc. We want to promote products and projects that support the environment, encourage a healthy experience in living, developing, nurturing, and useful technology, and offering platforms for positive, socially constructive entertainment or informative, transformative media. Our experience in creating a variety of products like this is rather vast, and we offer client-based and collaborative products, as well as the opportunity of active investors to join us in the creation and promotion of proprietary products, some of which are in latter stages of development. For more information, go to www.newgalaxyenterprises.com. That's www.newgalaxyenterprises.com. If you're interested in talking to us, just fill out the contact sheet and we will get back with you. Dr. Hugo Rodier has published 4 books on health issues covering practically all chronic health problems. You may find them by accessing his website at hugorodier.com. That's HUGORODIER.com. Gut health is the most academic, while switching off chronic disease is the most patient-oriented, with simple recipes to implement his nutritional protocols. We're back on the Integrative Hermetic Health Show with Dr. Hugo Rodier, and we're going to transition to another subject. We've had a really good in-depth discussion of B vitamins, but now we're going to look at an article that was published in the New York Times about some research. It's called MRI Scans Reveal Screen Time Tied to White Matter Development in Young Children's Brains. This doesn't sound too good. What do you think?
We've known about this problem for quite a long time. The American Academy of Pediatrics has been sounding the alarm about this for years, that kids are watching too much TV, and then it got worse. Video games, cell phones, iPads, my gosh, all that electromagnetism is messing with their brains. So the American Academy of Pediatrics put out a statement a while back. They reiterated each year, and pediatricians are very good about this. Don't allow a child to spend more than 1 hour a day with all those gadgets, which is virtually impossible in today's society, isn't it?
You know, and what's particularly alarming, and that's just because of my ignorance, that these children that in this study are all preschoolers. In other words, that young, they're watching or dealing with screens for hours.
Well, I'm sure you see at the grocery store, everywhere you go, mommy's pushing the grocery cart and the kid is in it with her cell phone, turned to some game or some movie, and the kid is hypnotized with her cell phone or an iPad. In fact, it's just like these gadgets have become our modern babysitters, haven't they?
Yes, they have. That's true.
So it's such an insidious problem. And, you know, when I think about these emerging technologies, I always go back to history. You know, we repeat history all the time, and it's sad, you know, we just don't learn as a society. But I wasn't around. Maybe you were, right? When X-rays first came out, right, Johnny? You were around, right?
Yeah, I think so.
No.
I was young, you know.
No. All those people are dead. But when they first came out, that technology was overused.
Yeah, like you go into a shoe shop and they do it in an X-ray, if I remember correctly, right?
Right. They would even X-ray your head if you're buying a hat. I mean, really. I mean, we laugh today, but I bet you money in a generation or two, they'll laugh at us that this emergent technology, cell phones, texting, iPads, was so abused when they first came out.
I want to just mention something else here, which is really disturbing my thoughts, is that the virtual reality technology. Because if this is absorbing, think about what that is. Absorbing you absolutely out of this sort of reality that we're living in. You know, when you watch the television, you're still in a real environment. But when you get into virtual reality, you kind of lose your environment.
Right. And, you know, this is my opinion. I might be wrong. I just have the feeling that all this technology stuff, it can be so disturbing that we have a bunch of scientists running around, mostly computer geeks, that believe that this whole reality is just one gigantic video game by some entity.
Right.
And you know, look, I'm open to the possibility that that is true. Okay. I mean, how do we know? But I feel that anybody who's materialistic and does not believe in a higher power, someone who believes we kick the bucket and that's it, we're done, will have to believe things like this because they're so afraid of dying. So they have to believe that there's something going on where they can maybe freeze their head or take a bunch of supplements, alter their genes, get artificial limbs and hearts and brains and all that, that they can prolong life and live forever. This is the promise of transhumanism. I believe it goes hand in hand with this philosophy that we're living in a computer-generated reality. And so talk about going overboard with technology, and it's sad. You know, look, it might be true. I'm open to the possibility. Let's just see. But in my heart of hearts, I don't believe that for a minute.
Well, neither do I. But I think that there's some aspect of reality that may be on a certain level hologramic. But that's quite different than it being like this giant program that's controlled by who knows what.
Right. So, well, we've been talking about technology, how our gadgets, cell phones, iPads have become our babysitters and they're messing with our kids' brains. It's just amazing to see how, especially young people, I can't reach some young people unless I text them.
Yeah. Well, one thing is, and I think you and I are similar in this way. When I was really young, 7 and 6 years old, this type of thing, I was thinking about real questions like, what is reality? Is there a God? What is truth? I had certain presuppositions too, which were, that there was a higher power, there was a reason for things, and that there needed to be a sanguine world order, a real world order that was caring. And I thought, of course, at that time that the United States was caring, and I thought a lot of things, but I thought about those things. I wasn't playing games all the time. And later on, I would read. And reading, I think, in a way, when you're reading serious books, whether they're fiction or nonfiction, it's a little bit different than when you're just assimilating films, which I love films. But on the other hand, I think that when your diet is all video games, that's pretty bad for your development of your mind in the proper way.
Yes, I grew up the same way, and I suspect most of our listeners did too. But I would be outside playing soccer until I couldn't see the ball anymore. And then I go home and I read the rest of the evening. Very little TV until it came out. Then, of course, I fell in love with Bonanza and Mission Impossible and Ranger and all that, but I still read. Anyway, I saw this cartoon in the Tribune, Salt Lake Tribune, like 3 months ago. The first frame, it shows a mom talking to a kid dressed like we did in the 50s, saying, "You're grounded for a week." And then the next frame shows a modern mom begging the kid who's got an iPad on his lap to go out and play. That
is the truth. Oh my God, that is the truth.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
Yeah, it is funny, but it's sad too.
Yeah, it is. I love cartoonists, comedians. Yeah, humor can teach a lot of lessons.
So yeah, that's true. Well, let's move on to another interesting topic on statins and how they might increase the risk for skin infection.
Yeah, a great article. You have it in front of you, right?
Yeah.
Tell us the main promise of that article.
Well, it says that researchers found that statins may increase the risk for skin infections, and that the ones who use it have a 40% increased risk for staph infections, and that risk was similar in patients with or without diabetes.
Right. Well, I believe it's for many reasons. We already know that statins increase the risk of diabetes, insulin resistance, which then messes with your liver and microbiome. And so that's where your immune system is, your immune detoxification system. So that's a big angle there that would explain why these drugs, statin drugs to lower cholesterol, can increase your risk of infections.
Should they be, in most cases, avoided?
Well, I hate to make a blank statement because there are some cases where you should take them, but most people would do just fine just changing their diet. In fact, the American Heart Association has made that clear. TLC first. TLC, therapeutic lifestyle changes first. And most people can avoid statins if they were just to eat real well. The other reason statin drugs can increase the risk of infections is because you're blocking the metabolism of fats. You're decreasing fats, right?
Yeah.
Well, guess what the skin is?
Largely fat.
Exactly. Yeah. So do the math there. And you can then see that taking these drugs, which are touted as extremely safe, can create problems. And since we're covering side effects of these drugs, we have to add liver issues, connective tissue issues where you hurt more, kind of overall achy. And then there's some reports that it can also increase the risk of dementia, but by lowering fats, because our brain, like the skin, most tissues, is 80% fat. Of course, you always see articles pushing back on everything I just mentioned. And if you follow the thread, you'll find that those rebuttal articles are published by the pharmaceuticals or doctors funded by the pharmaceuticals.
Well, I want to, since we mentioned fats and we were talking about fats, of course, are good fats and bad fats. Here's perhaps our last stab at an article today is one that says trans fats tied to increased dementia risk. That sounds terrible.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about because thanks for highlighting that article. Yeah, if you decrease the amounts of fats with a drug, then you're not fueling the brain properly. The brain is 80% fat again, and of course we all know people whose brain is 100% fat, but we're not going to go there. And this harkens back to eating nuts. Turns out that nuts also lower cholesterol, and at the same time, you get better fats for the brain. So yeah, eat a lot of nuts. Great snack. I like to get a bite of organic 75% cocoa chocolate while I'm eating my nuts. It didn't sound good. Eating nuts. And so look for these organic chocolates that are low in sugar, high in cocoa, lots of antioxidants. And so the nuts you eat will be a little more fun when you mix them with these chocolates.
Right, and although these chocolates may not be as appetizing or to the palate as regular sugar-laden chocolate, I think you can get used to them because I've sometimes indulged for quite some time in those things.
Well, whenever I hear people say I'm a chocoholic, no, you're not. You're a sugarholic. You love sugar and milk and chocolate. And the milk and chocolate is lactose, which is a sugar. And so, yeah, when you crave M&Ms, that's a different story. And so I guess I'm throwing people a bone here. Eat a lot of chocolate, but eat the right chocolate.
Well, I want to thank you again for a very interesting experience. I'm so glad to be able to assist you because it's like getting a post-college education in reality, actually. I've learned a lot. I mean, I thought because I've dealt with nutrition, I had other programs like this, that I sort of had it down. But I think I didn't. I didn't know anything about the microbiome, and I didn't understand really the types of specific challenges to the immune system coming from the environment and many other things. So I appreciate everything that we're doing.
Well, thank you, Johnny, for spending the time and making this program possible.
Well, I'm really glad to do it. It's one of the great things that I feel I've participated in. So we'll see you next week.
You betcha. Have a good preparation for Christmas.
Thank you. We'll see you later.
All right. Bye.
The Coalition is a unique project designed to empower its members both individually and collectively. Besides individual empowerment, its broader focus is on the restoration, protection, and enhancement of citizen and human rights throughout the world through the aid of its members. As this project is centered in the United States, our first task is to create a website and social network infrastructure to promote collective efforts to take back our rightful control as citizens over our government as designed by our founding fathers. Although we must begin with the social network restricted to United States citizens, the organization will also host a global dialogue for the discussion of human rights by citizens of democratic nations throughout the world. If you're interested, please check us out in the GoFundMe.com website, entering in the search field the Coalition for Planetary Empowerment. That is, go to GoFundMe.com and enter in the search field the Coalition for Planetary Empowerment. For more information about Dr. Rodier's practice, books, blogs, and newsletters, contact Hugo Rodier, MD, at www.hugorodier.com. That's HUGORODIER.com. We go out with an instrumental called A Tribute to Wendy and Lisa by Doc Skinner.